Been busy, been working. What about what about you? It's definitely weird times.
Just recovering, man. I had surgery in April, so I'm just recovering from that. Just starting to get back into the groove of things, and just trying to stay safe, trying to keep my family safe from COVID.
How has training been throughout the time throughout the whole time? I know you just said you got surgery, but for the most part, have you still been doing any light anything light, like any light training, any running, any cardio?
Yeah, actually, I've been doing all that physical therapy. Actually we have um, the garage matted out. We have wall mats, and zebra mats. Zebra mats sent us a whole bunch of mats to help us out with that. So kind of made it a lot easier because when Courtney was in camp for her fights, we did a lot of stuff out of the garage, so it helped a lot.
What's the status of the gyms there? Like, are they opening up now? Is it already open?
They were open, but now they just shut everything back down for another 30 days. So
And it's rough. I'm up in Canada, so here it's been shut down for the entire time essentially. So gyms are still shut down, and they just opened up like regular gyms, but doesn't help anybody, especially if you're trying to do jujitsu or anything like that.
yeah, it's crazy. Like they don't shut down like barbershops or restaurants. You know what I mean? And it's you still can catch it. At those places.
Yeah, yeah, it's weird because they don't consider the gym an essential service, which I think is silly because a lot of people it helps a lot of people with mental illness and all this other stuff as well. So I think it's silly. It's not considered an essential service personally, but who am I, right? I'm not I'm by no means any sort of politician. So I guess I'd like to start a little bit about talking about Courtney's performance. Actually, she looked really good right after the pandemic. She pulled off a very impressive submission. And then she had a quick turnaround and it didn't go her way. So I'd like to kind of like talk a little bit about what it was like to corner throughout like in an empty arena, and did that play any factor, I guess, on either of her performances?
No, actually, I think it benefits her. Not having a crowd there. You know, she doesn't really have to think too much. The crowd. It kind of messes with you. When you hear people screaming and all that, you kind of want to put on a show for them. But at the end of the day, you're in there for yourself, trying to win. It sucks that you have to win this. You have to win the fight. If not, you're only gonna get paid once.
Yeah, do you think like some fighters, for example, I feel like a Conor McGregor or one of these guys who really like the spotlight, I feel like they would thrive with the crowd. Other fighters may not as much. And do you find for yourself personally, do you find that maybe an empty arena may benefit you?
Yeah, a lot of people, that's they like that crowd, that type of environment. Even like my last fight, I think I let the crowd kind of play into that fight. Like when I had clipped him, I let my guard down and I was just like, I'm about to finish him. Like because I remember looking into the crowd and I seen Iron Man and Michael Irvin, so I'm like, dude, I'm about to put a show on for these dudes.
Yeah, it was I mean, it was a crazy fight. I mean, back and forth, really exciting. You had him wobbled. Unfortunate the way it ended. Is it a little bit bittersweet seeing him jump up in the top 15? Because I was a fan of yours ever since you essentially derailed Mark Diakiese. And I was like, this guy's right there. I mean, one or two big fights away, and it just feels like that was your shot. And is it a little bit bittersweet seeing him jump up to the top 15?
Not at all, because I think it didn't mess up my stock at all. It was just mental errors. That should be me. I think he's number 14 now. That should be me, but I'm not too worried. If I go out there in my next fight, have a great performance, I believe I can fight. Someone else in that top 15, and I don't know. It was just a learning curve for me, and let's just say over half of my fights have been in the UFC. So to me, I'm still kind of young in this game, man. It's just another a learning step to, catapult my career.
Do you have an idea of or a timeline, I guess, on a potential return? You're recovering from surgery, but is there an idea? Is it weeks? Is it months? Or is it a longer term time that you're going to be on the sidelines?
I don't know. I need to sit down with my manager because I'm trying to look at September, October, but if I wouldn't mind fighting a 170-pound fight, if it's a good matchup for me, jump up at 170 and try it.
Do you think that might be a permanent thing, or is it just an experimental? Let's try this thing, and if it doesn't work, I'll come back down.
Just to try it right now, because I'm a little heavy right now, so.
I think a lot of people are are moving up weight classes, or at least trying out new things.
Yeah. No, it would just be, there's a lot of guys that I think I know I can beat at 170. Just get up there, and if I can fight them, just go get that win, and then just go back down to 155.
Is there an opponent in mind, or anything like that, or is it just let's just wait to hear what they say?
For 155, Hernandez. That's what I want to fight.
I think that's a great matchup. That's actually like right after his fight, I was like, I'd love to see that fight because he was top 15 too, right? So if you beat him, you make a name for yourself and possibly jump into the top 15.
Either him or Alaquinta. I don't know how he's still ranked in the top 15. He hasn't fought in forever. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy how those rankings work.
Are you a fan of the rankings? I know a lot. Like for me as a fan, not so much as a fighter. I like it because it really helps kind of see where people are in terms of the division. But I could feel as a fighter, if you're like a number 11, why would you fight someone not in the top 15? Like it just doesn't make any sense. Do you think it like really sucks for fighters outside the top 15? And are you a fan of them in general?
I really don't like it because if you look at it, it's just a popularity contest.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of guys that's not ranked in the top 15 that could beat those top guys, but it's a business. So, if you're not putting people in the seats and eyes, they're not gonna put you in those rankings.
Yeah, one thing I noticed a lot about your career, I was skimming through your Wikipedia page, your Tapology, and you've never fought outside of the U.S. Is there a reason for that, or is it like I'm comfortable in the U.S., or did the opportunity just never show up?
No, I don't have a passport, and then I always tell my manager like, hey, I'm not trying to fight outside of the U.S. Could you have to pay taxes over there, and then you get taxed back over here? So it's like at the end of the day, I'm probably fighting for like $7 an hour. So.
Yeah, good point. I never looked at it that way. I always looked at it like an experience to go travel the world. Like, how crazy would it be to be on like Fight Island right now? But yeah,
I mean, I could do that after I'm done fighting.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. I'm in Canada, so I'd love to see you fight. So if there's ever something up in Halifax, you let me know.
Definitely. You already heard Mike Perry crying, talking about not crying, but talking about taxes, man. Like, man, it sucks how they hit you, So it's like, they double tax you.
Yeah, I really liked his point because he's like, yeah, we make 50 grand, or 20 and 20, whatever it is. But at the end of the year, they take most of it. Like he's like, I'm not asking for more money. I'm just asking to keep what I'm supposed to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different because it's like you're contractors, not necessarily employees.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of learned about with this taxes. You know what I mean? It's like you gotta make sure you save that money and put it away to pay those taxes. Because if not, you're gonna be hurting at the end of the year.
Yeah, I've been a fan of yours for a long time, especially since you beat Mark Diakese. There was a lot of bad blood going into that fight. Is there a fight in your career so far that stands out amongst the others? Is like, oh, that one was great. That was either an amazing stoppage or amazing performance, or with all the animosity going into it. Is there one fight that stands out amongst the rest?
No, I think that one was probably up there as top because dude, that whole fight week, it was crazy. Like he was just talking shit the whole time, and it's like, I'm like, dude, we're gonna scrap, dude. I'm not no little punk. I'm not like these little dudes you fought, man. Like I'm about this, and then once we went out there, I just got the job done. But what's crazy is I'm cool with him now. I always congratulate him, and always hit him up on Instagram, and he does the same. I don't know. It's kind of like we built a little friendship, and kind of we respect each other a lot more.
Yeah, I find that a lot with MMA fighters, especially after they fight. It's like you almost like part of you is still in the octagon with the person. Like we share blood, we sweat, we blood together. It's weird when you hear that, because any person I've been in a fight with, I've never talked to again. So it's definitely different from a fighter perspective, I guess, when you're both agreeing to fight, and there's no bad blood or anything like that. It's just
I'm a little weird. Like after a fight, I never you see a lot of fighters like hugging each other. I never try to hug the other fighter, or you know what I mean. I just like, fuck, you just try to kill me, dude, and like, why the fuck am I gonna give you a hug,
man? What is the because you're proud to be Michigan native. You're proudly from Michigan. You've got the tattoo. You moved to Arizona. What was the reason behind the move, and how has it changed your career?
You want the honest opinion why I moved out to Arizona?
Yes, let's hear it.
Man, I got kicked out of college, and so I was like, do I want to go back to where it's snowing, or do I want to go to where it's hot? So and at the time, my sister was living down in Tucson, Arizona, so I just packed up the car and moved down to Arizona.
I had a training camp once. I was a swimmer. Like I swam growing up. I had a training camp once in Flagstaff, and it was the hardest training camp of my life. What has altitude done, and how has it helped your career?
There's not too much altitude here in Phoenix, but we went up there a couple years ago when Benton had a fight when he fought in Albuquerque, and he did his training camp up there, and in Flagstaff, and I had helped him, and man, that stuff burns your lungs. Like if you're not used to that, it's like having 100-pound weight vest on you, and it just weighs you down.
Yeah, it's brutal. I can't imagine fighting or anything like that with that amount of heat and that all that. It'd be too much.
Yeah, like I would never want to fight in Denver, or was it Mexico City with the high elevation? I'm like, no, I'll pass on that.
Speaking of heat, Fight Island this weekend, crazy turn of events. Jorge Masvidal on 6 days' notice, fighting for the belt. What's your prediction for that fight?
Man, I hope Masvidal goes out there and knocks him out, but I like Masvidal, but I just don't see him getting the job done. Usman's been training for 5 rounds. But you never know, Masvidal might come out there and throw that knee and knock him out, and might be a wrap. I hope that happens, but
and the co-main event, Volkanovski and Max Holloway. I love this fight. I know it already happened. I usually hate rematches, but Max Holloway deserves it. What's your prediction for this one?
Okay, before you say he deserves it, why does he deserve it? It wasn't close, the first one.
Yeah, I've had this conversation. It's like, it's because it's Max Holloway. Like, it's just like he's been so dominant. It's not like he got knocked out. I understand it was a decision, but I mean, you could have made the same case for like Stipe DC, right? And you saw what happened in the rematch. So I don't know. They could go in there and Volkanovski could prove me wrong, but I love Holloway, so that's why I like the rematch.
Yeah, I think it's gonna go the same way, unless Max been working on checking kicks. But I doubt, his style. I doubt he's gonna be able to check those kicks and throw hands. He's gonna have to compensate somehow. If he wants to throw hands, his legs are gonna be open. If he wants to sit there and be ready to check, he's not gonna be able to throw too many hands. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I have a couple more questions, and then I'll let you go. One MMA one non-MMA one. So growing up, my parents never let me join any sort of martial art. I think the norm now has kind of changed with the UFC and fighters really just they're normal fighters out there where they're not all like Tito Ortiz's and Chuck Liddell's. There are some normal fighters, so it's kind of become normalized. What advice would you give to parents whose kids want to be involved in martial arts, but they're not necessarily accepting of it?
Um, I think, like I was a troubled kid, growing up, there were seven of us, and then I have three brothers that were all just a year apart. And in school, we would always just be bad, like terrorize the teachers and, fighting kids. And then um, my wrestling coach at the time went to my mom and he was like, hey, you should get him into wrestling. And that pretty much gave us the discipline, like once we got into wrestling, we changed up everything about us. Our grades got better. We started respecting the teachers more, and it kind of just it saved my life, because eventually I was able to get a scholarship to wrestling college, and it just changed me into a man, not like a little boy anymore. So
How
I
did
think
that?
I think it's important. It gives you that discipline, and especially if you don't have a father figure in your life. So
How did wrestling outside of discipline? How did wrestling help with your MMA career?
because it's just you when you step on that mat. Um, and then many hours of just grinding and uh, putting in that work and just teaching you hard work, and that's what wrestling does. Because if you don't put that work in, you're never gonna win a wrestling match. You're always gonna be getting pinned, and it teaches you how to grow up a lot quicker.
And then lastly, non-MMA related. Obviously, I'm sure you were doing some training. I'm sure you were hanging out with the family. I'm sure you were doing what sorts of things were you doing throughout the pandemic to keep your mind occupied?
Oh man, a lot of swimming. My son loves swimming, man. And it's like I got kind of burnt out on it. Like I would just go out there and just put my feet in there and just watch him swim. But we just did a lot of swimming and watch a lot of what did we watch? Ozark, all these TV shows, the Yellowstone, a lot of movie time.
Did you watch any Tiger King?
Oh, Tiger King. We watched it all, man. We had this little group chat with all my friends, and we were just always, hey, did you watch this? Did you watch that? And so we did a lot of watching and swimming.
As a fighter, how happy were you to see that the UFC was going to go ahead and put on these events, get something on TV outside of Tiger King?
Uh, Man, it was a blessing, man, because a lot of fighters we live paycheck to paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people don't understand that we don't get paid much, and if I didn't fight right before this pandemic, you know what I mean, it would have put us in a real hard spot financial wise, and then Courtney able to get two fights, you know what I mean, so that kind of helped us out, and um, so I'm just glad the UFC was the first to do it because a lot of people depend on uh, those checks and stuff. So it kind of sucks for the fighters that aren't in the UFC. Like how are they supporting their family? You know what I mean? They weren't fighting, but now since Fight Island's going, they could start supporting their family a little more.
Yeah, it's almost like there's not only just the stress of having to get into a fist fight, there's also the stress that you're doing it for money. Whereas NFL and all these other organizations, it's like the money's there. You
Yep.
know, you don't have to worry about that. It's just focus on the game. And I think MMA still has some ways to go, but I think like we talked about earlier, I think the UFC's taken the proper strides and hopefully we'll get there soon.
Yeah, because man, it sucks living paycheck to paycheck, man, and it's when you don't know you're gonna get, you know what I mean? Like, I got injured, I don't know when I'm gonna fight again, so it's like, how am I gonna make money? So something needs to change. We need to get paid more. So.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking this time. I'm looking forward to your next fight. I've been a fan for a while. I know that last fight didn't go your way, so hopefully you can rebound a big way, whether it's at 170 or 155.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks for the time. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Don't catch anything now, and hopefully we'll see you on TV soon.
Okay, thank you, man. Same to you. Stay safe.
All right. All the best.
Yep. Bye-bye.